Hello and welcome to the first in a series of 3 videos looking at the 3 different skill trees available to players in Mass Effect Andromeda. So we're going to start off, just do these in orders and go with combat. So to start with, we have the Omni Grenade. So the first 3 in a lot of these are very similar. First one's just always going to unlock the ability, and the next 2 then generally have to do with recharge, damage. In the combat, instead of recharge, a lot of them are capacity. So, like it says, like I was saying earlier with the first one, it just unlocks it, tap at the throw. You can hold if you want to charge it, but hold too long, it will blow up in your hand. And as with a large number of combat abilities, the active ones, it requires a power cell. So rank 2 just gives you an extra power cell. Rank 3 gives you direct damage. So also what's not shown here is the amount of points. So rank 1 costs 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, and hopefully you can figure out the rest from there. So that is an important thing to keep in mind, as a couple of the more advanced abilities are locked behind a minimum amount spent in the skill tree. It's 9 points. It really doesn't take that long to get to. Alright, moving on. So as you can see, for the last 3 you have a choice. So this will generally come down to your team composition and your personal play style as to which one you choose. So we get Sticky Grenade. Awesome. So it has 2 benefits. Obviously, 1, it applies directly to the surface or enemies, but 2, holding the button no longer actually affects the fuse time. So you can hold it and aim and wait for that perfect shot, and it will not explode in your hand. Or we can go with Frag Grenade. Bit more actual direct damage and a larger radius. Grenade capacity, so more power cells. You can just use more of them before you need to go find an ammo box, which is where you get power cells from. Shrapnel essentially adds a bleed-like effect. So you get a little bit of a dot. 5 seconds at 45 damage per second is fairly decent. And then straight up, anti-armor or anti-shield. You just get 50% extra damage versus whichever one you preference. Right, now we come to Concussive Shock, one of the few tech abilities that does not actually require power cells, and it's also a combo detonator. So a number of abilities, mostly inside of tech and biotics, are primers, and you hit them with a detonator, and this causes an explosion based off the primer. So the other benefit to this is that it is a seeker. So as long as you've aimed at the target to begin with, it will follow it even if they move, which can be quite useful. Then we get force and damage increase in our rank 2 and rank 3. So at rank 4 we have a choice. We can either go with even quicker recharge, or we can go with power cells, which means no recharge, and it inflicts more damage to enemies that are being knocked down. Now, this means that if you want to do this, you want to have something it can combo with that is going to knock enemies down in the first place. Right, radius. You actually now give it a 2 meter radius, so when it explodes, everything within 2 meters will take some damage. Or just straight up more damage and force to whatever it is you are shooting at. And again, anti-armor or anti-shield. Right, barricade. So, again, rank 1 gets it for you. So, barricade, obviously quite useful. As you can see here in the video, it's got of the ability. You can just place a barricade wherever you need it, and it will pop up. Enough room for you and at least one teammate. Again, we get an increase in power cells and an increase in duration this time, as it's not an offensive capability. So at rank 4, we can either go with longer duration again, or more power cell capacity. Rank 5, we've got weapon feedback here. So your weapon damage and accuracy plus any allies increased by 15%. Quite useful. Or power feedback. So this, instead of your weapon, which is what this one does it for your powers. So it increases the damage and force by 20% for you and any allies behind the barricade. So it comes down to what you're using more. Are you using powers more, or are you using your weapon more for your primary damage? Regeneration. So this negates the broken shield regeneration delay. So essentially you can walk forward, take a whole bunch of damage, wait until your shields are pretty much gone. I wouldn't recommend going too much further. And then place this, and you will have your shields come up, back up immediately, plus you get all the other effects. So you can also turn it into a primer of sorts. So it doesn't become an offensive capability, it's still defensive. Things still have to walk within the range, but once they do, they are primed for detonators, as well as actually doing some damage as well, and doing even more damage to shields and synthetics. Right, turbocharge. So another one that doesn't use power cells, but this is a little bit different in what it does anyhow. So essentially what it does, as you can see here, is increase your gun damage, your rate of fire, and your clip size for 8 seconds. Essentially the idea behind this is you activate it and you just blast away. So recharge speed and damage are our rank 2 and rank 3. So at rank 4 we get a choice between recharge speed and duration. Rank 5 we can increase our gun damage and gun force. Now keep in mind that force for guns really only a thing with shotguns and sniper rifles. Some of the heavier hitting pistols can be a thing, but they're still lower than the first two I mentioned. Or accuracy and stability. So your choice is really going to come down to the type of gun you're using. If it's a more automatic style weapon, you probably want this one. If it's your slower fire rate type weapons, probably your top one. Right, at rank 6 we get supercharged, so we get an even bigger increase to our rate of fire and clip size. Or dump heat, we just get straight up massive clip size. So again, I would argue that this is probably going to come down to the type of weapon you're using, with again the top being for your slower rate of fire weapons. Now while they generally have a smaller clip size, increasing their rate of fire is probably more beneficial. A shotgun firing at near full auto speeds is obviously going to be a thing. Whereas this, for your assault rifles in particular and your submachine guns, is just going to allow you to put stupid amounts of bullets down range. Right, trip mine. So again, rank 1 just gets you the trip mine. So as you see here, it runs on power cells, and it has a trigger radius as well as a laser range. So again, we can increase our power cell, and then damage and force for our rank 3. So at rank 4 we can either increase our sensor range, so 100% proximity radius and 60% to the laser range. Increase our power cells. Rank 5 we can go with damage and force or blast radius. Now at rank 6 we can either make it a detonator with a nice little extra 30% to our combo detonation damage, or we can make it a primer. So we now essentially turn it into more of an EMP style, allowing for that stun duration and extra damage versus shields, as well as priming for detonation. Right, and our last active ability in combat is flak cannon. So this is a bit of an AoE, again runs on power shields. So you'll notice here that it does the shrapnel part of it. So the direct damage part is fine, but the shrapnel part of it does do a little bit less damage versus armor, something to keep in mind. Rank 2 we get power cells, and at rank 3 we get area damage and force. So rank 4, we get a choice between damage and force. So again, it's the area damage and the force, or more power cells. Now, rank 5, we can go with anti-armor. You'll notice that this percentage is bigger than this percentage, meaning you essentially become more effective against armor overall. Or we can give it a stun. At rank 6, we can go with 50% more shrapnel explosions, or shredder, essentially giving it a dot. So this is just useful all round, and one of the tougher ones, especially at rank 5 and rank 6, to choose what you're going to go with. Both are good in both cases. Right, now we get passives. So combat has the most passives, as it has one for each of the 4 weapon types, as well as the standard 2 passives trees that you get in every one of these. So again, the first 3 are going to be very similar. Rank 1 damage, rank 2 accuracy, rank 3 usually something specific to the thing. In this case, it's movement accuracy with pistols. So just so you're aware, for those who maybe haven't played and realize this, submachine guns count as pistols. They are part of the pistol group. So if you're going to use submachine guns, this is the tree that you want to go with. Right. At rank 4, we get a choice between weight and spare ammo. So again, the rank 4 and rank 5, you'll pretty much have a similar choice across all of these. Now, for those of you who maybe haven't realized yet as well, or you might have played and maybe just haven't realized, but when you outfit your character, there is actually both a slot limit and a weight limit to their weapons. So standard is to start with 2 holster slots, and through upgrades that we'll get into in a second, you can upgrade that up to 4. But all weapons have weight. The bigger the weapon, the higher the weight. If you go over your weight limit, you actually have a negative effect on your cooldowns for your abilities. That is directly proportional to how much over your weight limit you are. So that's something to keep in mind when you're coming up with your build. Right, at rank 5, we have reload, speed, and clip size. Rank 6, this is where we get our real choice. We either go with unassisted targeting, which is 20% pistol damage, and accuracy and stability, which is the thing that is overlooked here, without using the aim function, or augmented targeting distance. So again, we get the damage, but again, we get, this case, we get accuracy and weak point bonus damage when using the aim function. So essentially, your weak point is used because you do face some non-organic enemies, and obviously they don't necessarily have a head, but they do all have a weak point. But essentially, we're referring to weak shot headshots here. Right, assault rifles. So again, some nice damage. Now, something I probably should have pointed out, this percentage is actually based on how many skill points you have invested in total in the combat skill group. So the more points you invest into the whole skill group, the more bonuses you'll get out of these. Right, we get accuracy and stability with the assault rifle. So again, weight, spare ammo, reload, clip size. Now, rank 6, we get shattered defenses. So enemies hit by assault rifle type increase damage from all sources by 2% up to a maximum of 24. Not that hard, obviously, with an assault rifle. And it only resets after you haven't hit the target for 2 seconds. If they're not dead within that time, they're one of the tougher enemies, and unfortunately they're not going to die much quicker anyhow. But trust me, I have noticed it on the bigger enemies when you get up to that 24%, how they suddenly do start taking quite a large amount more damage. Right. Your other rank 6 choice is increased headshot, weak point, and improved aiming with your assault rifles. So you can see that here, as well as stability, which isn't mentioned over here. Stability can be quite a big thing with your assault rifles. Shotguns. So again, we get damage, and with shotguns we also get force, stability, and precision. So this will just sort of tighten that spread as well as increasing the accuracy. Weight, spare ammo, reload, clip size. And at rank 6 we can either go straight up damage and force, or melee synergy. So melee hits boost your shotgun damage for 3 seconds. Shotgun hits boost your melee damage for 3 seconds. As you can see, they're both fairly decent boosts. I found with shotguns, they seem to figure that with a shotgun you're going to be running close and you are going to be meleeing a bit, as there is a mod for shotguns dedicated to increasing your melee capability as well as a particular shotgun that comes with a bonus to melee damage. Right, and lastly for our weapons, the sniper rifles. So again, damage, accuracy, headshots. So nice little bonus to your damage with your headshots / weak points. And again, we have weight, spare ammo, reload, clip size. Right, now damage and force. So like I was saying earlier, sniper rifles are the other ones with force. And killing spree. So this is a interesting one. So it actually improves your rate of fire, stability, and reload time for 5 seconds after killing an enemy. As you can see, these are fairly significant boosts. So if you're going to go with a sniper rifle as your primary weapon, I would probably recommend this. I have gone with this because I use sniper rifle as a secondary weapon, usually just to snipe 1 or 2 enemies who might be pissing me off or I don't particularly want to close in on. So yeah. Right, so our 2 overall passive trees here for combat. We have first combat fitness. So, as you can probably tell just from looking at the names, fairly obvious. We get health, we get shields, we get our extra holster here. Also, it increases your weapon weight capacity to go with that. So, you don't just get an extra holster and have to try and fit it into the same weight. It does give you a little bonus to your weight capacity. Then we can either go with consumables and increase their effectiveness. Now, I'll admit, I probably don't use consumables as much as I should. I'm quite bad that way. Saying that, I wasn't playing on a particularly high difficulty setting because I really just wanted to get through, and it still took about 80 hours to get through as it was. And so I actually went with the other one, which is regeneration. So health regeneration, shield regeneration, and the cap on your health regeneration as well. So it increases the rates. And that health regeneration cap, I believe it starts at about 25% or thereabouts. It's a bit hard to tell based on the bar, but it looked at be about 25%. This adds an extra 20%. So you get just under half of your health back through regeneration. You can get your 4th holster if you really want, so you can have one of each type. Or if you really want, you can have multiples of the same type. There is actually nothing stopping you from doing that. Heavy lifting. So we get weapon clip size, weapon spare ammo, and the extra power cell capability. Obviously, I'm not really using a lot of combat capabilities, especially not ones with power cells, so I don't need that, but that is quite useful. Then we get hold the line. So this is when you're on low health, which in their instance is anything below 30%. You get a damage resistance of 200, which is significant. Or you give yourself an extra damage resistance of 100 while in cover, and your delay on your shield regen while in cover is reduced by 250%. So I spend a lot of time in cover. For those people who maybe want to go a more run and gun or aerial build, which we'll also look at in a second with the other combat passive tree, that one there is probably slightly more useful. So combat tools. So power damage, that's your combat powers only. Melee damage, detonators, again only for combat detonators. Then we get hover, So extra duration plus extra weapon accuracy while airborne, or evasion. So 100 damage resistance while evading. Now, at first that sounds really good, but then you realize it's while you're evading. Well, I'm evading to avoid getting hit, usually. And on top of that, the evade lasts for maybe a fraction of a second, really. I personally could never see the benefit of choosing that over hover. I occasionally hover, I don't do it a lot, but I do occasionally do it, whereas that just seems to have no use. Right, aerial melee. So first and foremost, just straight up 20% increase to your damage, as well as your area of effect, which, trust me, is useful. It doesn't always quite land where you want. Detonators, again, it's only to combat detonators. Straight up aerial combat, so 30 damage resistance while airborne, 100% hover duration, and a 40% weapon accuracy bonus while airborne. So if you are finding that you are popping up and shooting people, most useful when going for people hiding behind cover, go for it. Martial arts, it's all about the melee. So it improves melee damage with each melee hit, including kills, and ends after you haven't performed one for 10 seconds, which is quite a long time. So with the right combo of skills and weapons, you could keep this going for quite a while, as you can see, it's per hit 5%, per kill 20%, with a maximum of 65%. Right, so that's all of the combat abilities available. Now, quick thing to point out here is that I have finished the game, and I have this amount of points in combat, and I have the full tech tree unlocked. So at the beginning, focus to what you want, but certainly once you start getting the skills that you want, feel free to dive into some of the others and get things like your weapons, as well as maybe a couple of the passives here in combat, because they're useful regardless of your overall build. And I just started to pick some of the others because, as you saw, some of these bonuses are based on the total number in the combat skill tree. So by just putting stuff in there, I get more bonuses. Right. So that's it for this video. I'll be doing another video, or another 2 videos looking at tech and biotics. I hope you can join us for those.